All right, hello everybody. Jeremy, the American College of Sports Medicine exercise physiologist, normal person, average person, doing the Independence channel. Welcome to Real Truth. I'm starting a new technique that I like to use. We're going to record the screen while simultaneously using the microphone to record the sounds. I want to bring the sounds live to you and bring you my up-to-date stream of consciousness as of late. There are so many things that I think about daily, and as of late, some things that have really interested me and that have caught my attention. Once you start to learn about the world that truly exists, our economic and demographic environment in which we exist, that controls our perception of reality, controls our emotions, predicts our behavior. If you look at the central banking system, and they have in their business model a variable for the human emotion. We need to know these things because the corporate media is used to inflame that emotion using our identities, whether you're black, white, whatever the case. And that's where I want to start with Lil Wayne. When we talk about identity of the black community in America, or anywhere really, people like Lil Wayne have a lot of influence. And when you have a lot of influence, you're expected to walk a tightrope, man. You're supposed to be rapping about money and jizz and all kinds of other stuff, right? I don't mean to be derogatory here, but that's what you're supposed to be rapping about. A bunch of narcissistic, egotistical, external things that consume our consciousness, and identities are then created into our ego. So it becomes an alternate universe that we live in. We think it's who we are, but really all of these external things blind us from our true purpose, right? And so that includes pandering to the black identity. All right, so Lil Wayne poses with Little hands, Donald Trump, right? Back before the election, Lil Wayne would then go on to be squeezed by the FBI. All right, and the Department of Justice. They filed charges against Lil Wayne for having an illegal firearm. He is a convicted felon. You can go back and look into that squeeze, but this is what happens when these people become independent in mind. They start rapping about pedophilia. They start rapping about a lot of different things. If you listen to Lil Wayne in the Carter 4, in the Carter 3, all of these, he gives hints as to what exactly is going on, okay? And when he poses with Donald Trump back before the election, the deep state and the establishment bureaucrats, people like Peter Strzok who are assigned to special investigations that allow the FBI to manipulate the investigation and to control the perception of reality to the public in regards and out of context of of what the actual reality is. They are put in a position. Mueller, James Comey, all these people are career bureaucrats who protect one another. And so this is what happens when a person like Lil Wayne, who has an immense amount of influence, steps out of line. Because remember, Trump was a Nazi, bigot, xenophobe, homophobe, you name it, bigot, blah, 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 if I didn't already say that. And so that narrative had to be protected. So Lil Wayne goes to jail. This video here, I'm not going to play it, but the real reason Trump gave Lil Wayne a presidential pardon, it's not just Lil Wayne, he also gave other people. And one thing that was really interesting to me is that Snoop Dogg criticized Trump administration all through the administration up until late in the game when, I will play this part, Death Row Records. You remember Death Row Records and their fall? Well, you have to start to wonder, did Death Row Records actually stop conforming to their BS and they were trying to become independent? That's something that needs to be thought about.
In addition to the two aforementioned hip-hop artists, the former president commuted the sentence of Death Row Records co-founder Michael Harry O'Harris per Rolling Stone. Harris served 30 years of a 25-year-to-life sentence for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder per NBC. Due to his exemplary prison record for 3 decades, his efforts in-house as a prison reform activist, and completing courses towards business and journalism degrees, the hip-hop pioneer will be released. Clearly, nobody's happier about the decision than Snoop Dogg. Following the news, Snoop, who is close friends with Harris, had a message for the former president, per the New York Post. They did some great work while they was in there, and they did some great work on their way out. Let them know that I love what they did.
All right, so you get what's up here. The point being is that we're being fed a narrative, all right? And we need to start understanding who these people are. Who is this person? Who's this guy? we should start investigating, doing some research as to what is going on with our hip-hop industry, all of these things. All right, now leave that with that. All right, so moving forward, all right, I'm going to get into the Suez Canal shortly. We're going to do that last, all right? We're going to start out, though, with student loan asset-backed securities, all right? I've been studying a lot about our student loan debt crisis. It currently sits at $1.5 or $1.6 trillion unofficially, which equals California's pension debt crisis themselves. California owes, in the next 10 years, or 9 years rather, 1/3 of the total pension debt owed to its people. And they're going bankrupt. And they're trying to launder COVID money, or doing so successfully, into the hands of those who bankrupted it. True story, you can look into it. Anyway, so where are we going to hide this debt, or how are we going to transfer it? What are we going to do here? I'm not sure, but what I do know is that we have a serious student loan debt issue, and we're about to use that narrative to print an ungodly amount of money. Well, I guess if it's printable, it's not ungodly, right? We are under the guise of God, right? In God we trust, supposedly. Yet we allow our people to do ungodly things that do nothing but manipulate people and create inequity. And we know where that gets us. Currently in desperate mode, where we are fearful of everything and we listen to whatever everybody else says to do, put masks on, take vaccines that are not even vaccines, so on and so forth. So the student loan asset-backed securities. My point of this article, I highly recommend the article. You see it here, look into it. It's on Investopedia. We want to look into these things. With a global economy in which liquidity is increasingly important, securitization, the repackaging of assets into marketable financial instruments, has slithered into every market. Slithered. We literally watched the collapse in 2007 and 8. Okay? Of these securitization backed loan assets, okay? And what's happening is we are under, as Americans, a false impression that because something is backed by the federal government that it is safe, and it is not. Because they are taking that debt and they are lending to entities that don't even have to abide by the United States Constitution. These are entities that are foreign and that do not hold an allegiance to what you hold an allegiance to as an American or as a student of another country. It's probably happening. It's happening abroad as well, right? So people are under this false impression that we can just print money for people to alleviate a lot of their debt, and it doesn't work like that. We have to understand that this debt comes at the cost of interest, plus the program, plus the bureaucracy, the regulation, the regulatory bodies that are required. And these people that are put in the position then become a part of the bureaucracy. They're paid well. They have some influence amongst their peers. They're not going to give that up. They're slowly going to work themselves up to a position, and they will not compromise this position. The position has become a part of their identity. All right? Why are these slabs important? We need to understand what it means to print money, to go in debt, to think that our debt's just going to disappear. The only way it disappears is if we go to war to cover, or we steal, or we impede on others' wealth to take from that wealth. Unfortunately, through the financialization of our legislative bodies that have allowed this to happen, the Dodd-Frank Act, I highly recommend looking it up, 2009, all of these entities have become lending authorities. Okay? They have financialized these entities by which, when money through the Federal Reserve, through the what we call the repo markets, when banks are too risky to lend to one another, when banks are deemed too risky by other banks to lend to one another, the Federal Reserve must come in and inject capital into these entities in order to keep the machinery oiled so that things don't lock up. There isn't money in the event that there isn't money to be pushed through so that other people can receive their funding, what happens when all of that goes kaput, right? So suspension was added, the Frank-Dodd Act or the Dodd-Frank Act, whatever you want to call it. And we have been injecting the Federal Reserve at an ungodly rate, man. I keep saying ungodly. It really is ungodly. Money, we've been injecting an ungodly amount of money into the economy. And it's not even into the economy. We believe it's the economy. It really isn't. It's going into the hands of others, and they've disguised this in a way that has exploited our fear. They've exploited our fear in order to subvert the consciousness of what they actually do. Why is this important? All right, so I was invited to a presentation. I listened to a presentation recently from an advocate of public interest. This would be U.S. purge or mass purge. All right, mass purge. U.S. purge, similar to U.S. purge. Mass purge is an advocate for the public interest, specifically of the consumer. And more specifically, in regards to this episode, the student loan borrower. All right, so according to U.S. Purge, it's an advocate for the public interest. We speak out for a healthier, safer world in which we're freer to pursue our own individual well-being and the common good. All right, so mass purge. What essentially mass purge does, if you go to look about their work, about some of the things that they do, they're consumer watchdogs, zero waste, zero out toxics, democracy for the people, big money out, modernizing the vote, the New Voters Project, transform transportation. So they advocate for special interests, and I want to elaborate on that. Mass purge. They give a presentation in a class that I'm in, and it's an 18-year-old person, 19-year-old freshman, something like that, and she's I'm aware of this, so I want to do some research, and so I start pulling up all of this information. And what I learned was that mass purge claims to be helping the consumer and these types of people, when in reality what they're doing is they are themselves a lobby group for entities that control our perception of reality and actually assist. They actually entrap consumers into thinking that they're making a difference, when in reality they are tricking through the power of virtue signaling. They're tricking students and other people into not only donating to their cause, which many people aren't even aware of, they're tricking people into believing that they themselves are there to help the consumer, when in reality they're not. And I'll give a prime example. As I'm doing my research and I look to see all of the different movements that mass purge represents, they all end up leading to legislative change. So when we legislate, it's important to understand that from a social demographic perspective, when we are a social democracy under the central banking system. Therefore, any legislation that happens, especially in regards to our debt, we're going to financialize our debt, people. That comes at the cost of the debt plus interest that's already been accrued anyway, plus the bureaucracy that regulates it, okay? This is the bureaucratic body that devalues our wealth. And the 19-year-old student that goes on to talk about how we helped secure passage of a student loan borrower Bill of Rights, for example, that on January 6th, in the final hours of legislative session, state lawmakers in Massachusetts passed the Student Loan Borrowers Bill of Rights Act, which would provide new protections against deceptive lending practices to nearly 1 million student borrowers across the state. Governor Charlie Baker then signed the protections into law on January 14th. Now, keep nearly 1 million student borrowers across the state in mind. Keep 1 million people in mind. Because I'm going to go back here to an article in 2003 where mass purge manipulates UMass students. This is September 8, 2003. And in this article, they talk about mass purge fee on your semester bill is not mandatory. However, they will charge you unless you opt out of it. You have to willfully and knowingly and courageously sign or check that you do not want to donate the $7. Now, that fee moved up to as high as $11. It may even be more. I haven't even begun to research it yet. It doesn't even take much to realize that if you multiply $7 by 1 million people, that's $7 million. And I'm wondering if the same people who lobby to protect student borrowers against the predatory practices of those who should be held responsible under common law, and we're going to talk about common law and maritime law in a little while and why this stream of consciousness is so important to me. All right? Instead of going after the people who are predatory under common law, they seek to protect the people. Rather, they're going to go after the lower level people who work for these people. And in doing so, we're legislating our debt. When you financialize through the Dodd-Frank Act and other various legislative processes that have occurred under the guise of helping people who are less fortunate, all right, we're not going after the perpetrators. We're going after instead the workers like us who get out of college and go work for these people, right? So in the meantime, Mass Purge collects all of that money to hire corporate lawyers, right? Lawyers who are responsible for ensuring that the public sees the mass purge in the light that they do, that mass purge is actually helping legislate, when in reality, they are in bed with the same people who are legislating. These special interests work like this. They've collected $7 million. The bank then received that as part of the bill for the student. The student took out took on debt. And I wonder if this donation is part of that debt. I could be wrong. Somebody should look it up and prove me right or wrong. But this is where I'm getting at with this. You have somebody supposedly lobbying against the predatory lenders, protecting against predatory lending, yet they've double dipped and they were a part of it to begin with. Tell me how this isn't hypocrisy. This is the problem. When you have an 18 and 19-year-old person who knows nothing about life or very little, it's limited knowledge and wisdom, coming into a class of professionals and talking about how it's important to vote, who it's important to vote for example, people who support mass purge. You don't know who these people are or where they're giving their money to. You need to find out for yourself. So this person's coming in that's completely ignorant to this. And I had to call this person out. And this is the fight that we're in right now, where we have entities like this that are collecting money while simultaneously claiming to be protecting the people it's collecting money from. So I asked the person about the financialization of our legislation. She doesn't know about it. She tails off onto some tangent about lawyers and how she does what the lawyers say. And I said, you don't know who those lawyers represent. So how is it that that's not double dipping? How is it that these people aren't collecting money from you while simultaneously claiming that they're protecting you from the same predatory groups that they just help get more money for? Please tell me that. This is a 2003 article, okay? And this is the Mass Purge praises passage of key bill to protect student loan borrowers, okay? Includes new protections for borrowers, is heading to Governor Baker's desk to sign. All right, and you can read it for yourself here. Will codify desperately needed protections for borrowers. We have fought tirelessly alongside Mass Purge, the Student Borrower Protection Center. The Hildreth Institute, the Phenom, and other stakeholders since 2017 to put these guidelines in place. These dates are very important. Anything after 2016 that the bureaucracy is doing is important to pay attention to, because they are pandering to your virtues and emotions and your identities in order to subvert your consciousness. They are stealing money from the average taxpayer in order to facilitate this. It's kind of a brainwashing. It controls your perception of reality. This person's 18 and 19 years old and confidently is telling people where to go. Let me reiterate this and send you the link just in case you weren't here and didn't see it to begin with. It was really pushy. It made me feel as if I were in at a car lot and I had a really pushy car salesman telling me what I need to do. And it was an 18 or 19-year-old freshman in college. That is disgusting to me. And so I made it I made it a valid point to call this person out. Moving forward, vaccine efficacy. Listen to this. I don't care about the vaccine right now, even though I'm a published scientist and I concern myself with these things. I have a lot of clients that I talk to on a daily basis about these things, and it's important that I stay up to date with what's going on in our world of ridiculousness. Okay, in our world of propaganda. Speaking of propaganda, NPR, there's a new March 31st, 2021, 8:18 a.m. updated Bill Chappell, I don't know, Chappell, I think. Anybody working and writing for NPR is suspect, and they're most likely brainwashed or they are a part of the manipulation. And prime example, Pfizer says COVID-19 vaccine shows 100% efficacy in adolescents. All right, now, this is just a huge headline, right? 100% efficacy. Impossible. 100% efficacy in adolescents. Yet new clinical trials showed that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine elicits 100% efficacy and robust antibody responses in adolescents from 12 to 15 years old, the drug company announced Wednesday. The trial included 2260 trial participants. The results are even better than earlier responses from participants 16 to 25. Pfizer and its vaccine partner BioNTech say they will submit the results as soon as possible to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the European Medicines Agency. Pfizer will submit the data in the coming weeks. So they're going to come out with this huge headline, right? Pfizer said COVID-19 vaccine shows 100% efficacy. Yet you go 2 paragraphs in, or 3 in, and it says Pfizer will submit the data in coming weeks. Are you kidding me? So they're going to come out with a headline like this, yet the data is not available and it won't be for some time. This is the issue I have with these idiots. Well, they're not the idiots. They are the controllers and we are the idiots. I'll admit that. But what they do going down here, very similar to the hydroxychloroquine literature that a lot of the bureaucratic doctors were using to ban hydroxychloroquine from being used, that led potentially to the deaths of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in our country. And this was specifically with Gretchen Whitmer and less specifically with Mr. Cuomo, who's also under hot fire for having hot diddly fingers, apparently. So in any case, so what they're going to do is they come out with this literature that says, hey, hydroxychloroquine is known to cause scar tissuing in cardiac heart cells, okay? The Lancet had to retract the statement weeks later. So did the New England Journal of Medicine. Okay, and you don't see NPR giving some major retraction. You might see it buried in headline news or something, but this is a huge deal, and this is something very much worth following up on, okay? Very big deal, because Moderna, or was it Moderna? There was, according to Tim Pool, as reported by other sources, Canada is very skeptical of another vaccine that's currently supposedly, possibly, potentially, maybe, I don't know, has been associated with excessive platelet creation, which clots the blood. There you go. All right, now I'm not going to clarify beyond that. You can do your own research with that. Moving forward, all right. So I mentioned maritime law and common law. Going back. Let's stop legislating to protect people that's going to cost us more money and go after the assholes themselves, right? No, we're not going to do that under common law. We're under maritime law. There's a huge difference between maritime law and our law. Why is this important? We're not going after the people maritime or under common law. We allow them to be subjected to maritime law, and because these people control maritime law and are married to maritime law, literally, not metaphorically, we have no idea what's happening. And so the Suez Canal gets unblocked. I'm really big into economic politics and the global economy. I like to trade. I like to invest in various things. I like to understand my socioeconomic and demographic environment so I can be less of a mental slave than the rest of us. I still am, don't worry. Otherwise, I would move to somewhere where nobody else is, and I'd just fight off bears for the rest of my life. I might grow some extra hair on my chest for doing so, and I might gain some self-respect. All right? I might gain some respect from bears too. Who knows? Anyway, so the Suez Canal unblocked, the world's commerce resumes its course. Okay, what happened is I have a diplomatic back channel, and a lot of people understand what's actually going on with the bureaucratic web, this interconnected web of bureaucratic oligarchs and so on and so forth that actually control how the world works. They control our perception of reality and all this stuff. So we think about Evergreen, the ship that blocked up the Suez Canal. Supposedly it was connected in some way to the Clintons, and we think of human trafficking and these things. So we think of Ghizlain Maxwell, supposedly. So you hear the word or name Ghizlain Maxwell. Ghizlain Maxwell, I do know her father for being heavily connected with this bureaucratic cult, if you will. And you want to know why they're trying to connect these things, right? So I don't just take people's word for it. I want to know what the hell they're talking about. So I start looking into her husband, okay? Why is this important? Let's move here. Scott Borgerson. Scott Borgerson is he's some military officer apparently. I didn't know this. But he also wrote books, one of them being The National Interest of the Law of the Sea, which would be this book. Provided to the Council or by the Council on Foreign Relations. We're going to get into that very shortly. I'm blowing some minds up in here today for those who are interested. Scott Gerald Borgerson wrote that book, and that's very important because apparently Ghizlain transferred all of her wealth to this guy or something like that, and this guy is very majorly connected. CEO of Cargometrics, a data analytics company for maritime trade and shipping. Okay, so maritime law is going to be very important. Why is it? Ghizlain Maxwell is in court under maritime law, and this guy writes about controlling maritime law and controlling people through maritime law. So when you go into these courts, the maritime law stacks the deck against people who don't know it. It's a language. Jordan Maxwell is a key word here. Go look into Jordan Maxwell and the maritime law language, if you will. He'll talk about it, and it will enlighten you. All right, I highly recommend it. Scott Gerald Borgerson writes this book, so it goes Ghizlain Maxwell. For those of you who don't understand her role with Epstein, it appeared as though Epstein and Ghizlain were connected to very elite people, and they used that status to corrupt individuals in highly placed bureaucratic positions in order to control them. We control the law of the land via maritime law, okay? This is what I'm gathering from it. And so these people are they are put in a position to then seek investors. They seek people in other countries and other sovereign countries towards a higher agenda, a higher global agenda. And so they undermine the Constitution and the laws of individual sovereign countries in order to facilitate what's actually going on. When you have the global trading shipping lanes disrupted, this is what they being people who have become enlightened with new information, who see what's going on, they are suggesting that this was an opportunity to expose and spark interest in this research and investigating, okay? And so that is what this whole big thing is. And so I start to look into Scott Gerald Borgerson. I click on his book. This pops up. Let's move this here. Council on Foreign Relations. The National Interest in the Law of the Sea. So it's a 76-page special report, number 46 of May 2009. This led me to looking into the 7 reasons U.S. should not ratify UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. It actually would, in my opinion, enslave the United States citizens into more debt, which is what you're seeing now. You think this has to do with COVID? I highly disagree. We are laundering money using BlackRock, who's entangled themselves into the Federal Reserve, and they are laundering that money into foreign hands right now, into entities. This is going to include the student loan debt, if we allow it to happen. All right. So I start investigating this stuff. I highly recommend, as a matter of fact, I'll end on a Jordan Maxwell thing, okay? But we do the 7 reasons here, and we start to learn that we are living under like parallel laws, okay? This is why there's no common law, man. There's no common law between classes of people. So we are in a maritime law system. And if an expert hears this and they can prove me wrong, I would love to know the details, because I'm going to investigate this stuff. It's part of my purpose in life. We need to enlighten ourselves. All right, and this led me to another book that I'm going to read. And this was a very expensive book. It was like $70, man. And so I've read a lot of summaries on the book. I'm going to read it, The Future of the Law of the Sea, Bridging Gaps Between National, Individual, and Common Interests. These are the things that drive us towards our purpose, man. We continue towards this eternal consciousness, man. When we're in the 3-dimensional, we seek knowledge of the archetypes of the unconscious. We need this knowledge because it defines it helps us understand who we are, right? And why is this important? The Council on Foreign Relations, because you have a person like Joe Biden in January of 2018 talking about not only the quid pro quo that they accuse Trump of doing, that he himself brags about in this very same thing, okay? In this very same sit-down discussion. But here, he's going to talk about something else. And I'm going to let you listen, see if you can pick it up.
The focus in the administration was really on the cyber attack. We knew that they had intruded into 21 states' election infrastructure.
Now, they're talking about Russia. They're talking about Russia interfering in our elections and infiltrating 21 states. Now, remember, Obama knew about this, but he didn't tell anybody about it. Yet he opened investigations against everybody running for president at that time, and they were running an operation of blackmail. You can look up Patrick Byrne. As a matter of fact, it's very easy to do. Type in YouTube. Go to Patrick Byrne. I already have, look at that. Search history and all, baby. Boom, there are 2 separate articles or interviews, okay? These are out there. He describes what he was used for as a CEO of a company, a large company. All right, they use these people and their influence, their access to foreign leaders, because foreign leaders want money from these people. They want to boost their economies. All right, so Joe Biden and the Obama administration knew, and I'm whispering as if they're right here next to me, they knew what was going on, and they were opening a grade A can of worms, according to Patrick Byrne, and they were going to use this in order to implement a Hegelian dialectic to infiltrate our elections and control it. And this is why you end up with the New York Times. The New York Times. No. This Times, or Time Magazine. This would have been, here it is. The secret bipartisan campaign that saved. This gave them the cover using corporate media and using things like Joe Biden's talk on the Council of Foreign Relations to implement their own control over the elections so that they could control the outcome, in my opinion. That's what I say. It's a Hegelian dialectic, folks. They knew about it and allowed it to take place so that they could implement regulations. This is what the bureaucracy does. They seek more control and power, and they've done so using social media as well. All right, when Facebook gets fined billions of dollars for sharing your data and making money and profiting and manufacturing, and, well, they manufacture, manifest, harvest data, information, you name it. Those entities are then used to collect information about who you vote for, all of those different things, okay? They use these things, people. If you think they're not, you're absolutely mistaken. And you're going to get burned in the long run, along with the rest of us. You're going to bring us all down with you. All right, so we are not all in this together right now. We need to be. So anyway, Joe Biden would talk.
Very focused, precisely as the Vice President said, on not allowing the Russians to be able to go in and physically change votes or flip people's, for example, addresses to suppress voter registration.
Okay, so what they do is they accuse others of that which they themselves are doing. They were caught on a massive scale. Massive scale colluding with foreign entities to influence our election. It's a fact, man. People don't believe it because they listen to the mainstream narrative and Rachel Maddow. You cannot listen to that any longer. He would go on to talk quid pro quo, and how do I know?
So I got Ukraine.
He was put in charge of Ukraine to facilitate the coup that was occurring. They were breaking Russian influence in Ukraine in order to apply pressure to Russia. Why? Because the Russian narrative is needed in order to facilitate the military-industrial complex, to facilitate the impeding of our constitutional rights so that they can start imposing more security legislation, which costs more money. Again, the legislation, the financialization of our legislative bodies, okay? And that debt goes to people you don't even know who they are. Right?
I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing them that we should be providing for loan guarantees. Now, I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to the press conference. I said, no, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours. I said, leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired.
Look at the smugness on the guy
son of a bitch.
On the left.
Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
All right, so now from an ignorant perspective, you think that what he's saying is that he caught corruption in Ukraine and sought to stop it. What he really means is the corruption that went against his enterprise. His son was in position at Burisma. The investigator, the prosecuting attorney that was investigating Burisma, was investigating his son. That's a true story. So the Ukrainians were investigating corruption in the Ukrainian government, that corruption being American influence. That's exactly what it was. All right? It's very important we understand this because these people operate on maritime law, not common law, and that was a common theme of the former administration. I did not vote for Trump for many reasons, including his connection with Mike Pompeo and the CIA, and the pressure that they put on Venezuela while simultaneously creating a false perception of reality about it. Or covering up quantitative easing. Or covering up that he had to bail out the shale oil industry using COVID funding. Nobody will give him crap about that. I didn't. I purposely did not vote. With that being said, I understand what was at stake and I do support the Trump movement at 100%. And it's this reason, these reasons right here, all of these reasons. There's no common law. They have created a false perception of reality. You don't have to see it right now. But keep following. Keep following these things. Keep following these things. These people brag about a shadow campaign and the corporate campaign. Who owns all of these entities? Corporation. NPR gets funding from who? Do they take advertisements? I heard they do. I know PBS does. People, this is the law that we currently live under, and this is what we should not be living under. We need to be operating under common law. And instead, we live in a parallel universe. And this is why we're sick as average, normal citizens. We're sleep deprived. We're dopamine and serotonin addicted. We're malnourished. We're depressed. We're anxious. We're motionless. We're filled with friction. We're filled with doubt. We are filled with fear. And it controls our emotions and predicts our behavior. It makes it very easy to predict what people are going to do for the masses. We must overcome these things, and it starts with learning about who we actually truly are. We have access to the internet for now. What happens when they start censoring it even more than what they already have? All right. So we're going to end on that note, folks. What did I promise? Let's do Jordan Maxwell. Right here.
Because your life hangs in the balance on it. Another example is if you owned a 2-story building and you were going to put a lot of weight on the second floor. If you were smart, you would go downstairs first with the structural engineer, get on a ladder, and go up through the ceiling tiles and examine the floor that you're going to put that weight on to see if the floor is going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you are standing under the foundation you're going to build on. You're standing under to get understanding, because that's where the word understand comes from. To stand under the foundation that you're building on.
Pretty nifty, folks. And when you start to listen to these other things, you start to expand your mind a bit and develop new neurological pathways. This is what we seek to do. All right? So, God bless everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And stay independent, stay motivated, stay hydrated. And for God's sakes, get some sleep.